We can all be in situations where we're at a gathering. It could be with family. It could be with friends. We could be at work. It could be an interaction. It could be any of these scenarios where all of a sudden we just find that the conversation's moving in a direction where something about what the person's saying and doing it's starting to really impact us. And we just feel that urge to say stop or shout. And why do we get that urge? Well, sometimes it's, exactly for this reason. We're doing just fine. It's the way the person's processing it that's the problem. So this can often, be the scenario and playfully why we feel what we feel. And what's so normal here is, why do we feel that urge to shout? Well, if we sit back for a moment, these are just some of the reasons. I'm sure you could add to this list. And before I forget to say, you'll get notes and you'll also get resources for this class today. You'll get the notes on what we speak about. We don't often, we don't like what we're hearing, might go against our values or beliefs, or we don't feel the person's listening to us. They're misinterpreting what we're saying. They're making assumptions and getting it wrong. Or in the middle of an interaction or a conversation that starts to develop, we might find that, what the person's saying is actually really hurtful and it's making us quite angry. And we want to correct the person. Or it could just be that scenario where it's a particular person in our lives that we just find difficult. And it just seems that every time we're in an interaction with them, it's never an easy interaction. But here's what I want to come back to say is that this is so normal. And especially if it's an ongoing situation. Like, I don't know if you've had this experience where sometimes with certain people we get together with or certain people at work, they just always have a way of pushing our buttons, or they bring up the same type of circumstances all the time, and they talk in that same way, and it's ongoing and it never changes. And maybe we've never had an opportunity to address it, or we've tried and it doesn't change. So it's normal to want to experience this. And like I said, this can happen at any time, anywhere. So I want to say that at the end of the class, there's no guarantee that you won't have those moments where you want to shout. Having said that, what I can say is that you'll also have the skills to begin to practice to stay in listening mode and move towards a good outcome. And I really want to say something around that last point. Not for a second do I think that there are not situations that we might need to actually back out of. Sometimes there are topics of conversation, or there are just conversations we find ourselves in where, what? The day is not going well for us. We are just not able to be in the conversation, and we might bow out. And it might not always be with someone we know. It could be, that we're at a restaurant or a store, and the way we're being treated is annoying to us. So it doesn't always have to be with someone we know. And I just want to talk about that. Sometimes there are moments where we might have to say, you know what? I'm really sorry I'm not able to have this conversation with you. Or if it was someone we know, I'm not able to have this conversation with you right now, or maybe ever. I say that because sometimes there are those circumstances, without question, and I don't want to pretend that there aren't. What I want to talk about today is those situations where we likely know that we could stay in the conversation, but we're just noticing that it's like when our posture goes a little forward because we just want to say, hang on, wait a minute. Let me just say one thing. And those are the moments where we want to try and practice listening, especially if we know that in this conversation that we're having, we really do want to see some sort of resolve around it, or it matters to us to see a better outcome and see it shift in a different direction. So this is really key, that the way we listen and how we respond is so influenced by our perceptions, the assumptions that we hold, how we interpret something, and any biases and beliefs. And I just want to say, I don't say biases as a negative thing, because we all have them. If you go and look at cognitive biases that we have, there are numerous cognitive biases that we can have. So one can be that we only look at things that only support our point of view. Or in hindsight, we can see, yep, we were right. And we want to say that to somebody. All of us hold biases around things. And in your resources, you'll see that there's a link to a theory that's called the ladder of inference. That could be a whole other workshop, but the ladder of inference, just very quickly, what it talks about is this exact thing about our perceptions, assumptions, and interpretations, and how quickly all of this happens in a conversation. So someone says something to us, and all of a sudden, we can go through this ladder so quickly. We might be holding a bias. We might be interpreting what a person said, maybe incorrectly. And before you know it, we're responding based on a lot of these things. And what you have to know is it's normal. It's normal to have that happen. I don't know a human that maybe doesn't have that happen. What we want to get better at, though, is noticing those and noticing how it can really impact our response and why we might feel it difficult to stay in listening mode. Especially when a conversation evolves and a person starts to say something and you just think, I just do not know where they are going with this. And especially when someone rants, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where someone starts talking about something and then they just go into a rant, and you really wonder if they have an off switch. And listening becomes so hard because you just imagine putting tape over their mouth, or you want to fall on the floor just to make the point that, okay, you've heard enough. So we can have those moments. So I thought what we could do is, let's just look at this interaction that happens between these two sisters. And let's talk about what assumptions or interpretations they might be